All right, here we go. Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and now on YouTube. So don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button on YouTube. You can watch along. You don't just have to listen to us. You can look at us as well on the YouTube channel, doing some good stuff over there. Hopefully more to come. Look for an announcement next week from Subway Sports Talk. Some exciting content, specifically perhaps to our New Yorkers in the crowd. You might be enjoying some of that stuff coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. And also with me today, my guy, here all year talking football, but now looking to flex some muscles on the basketball court. He's ready to rip some NBA takes. We're going into the final stretch of the NBA season. It's exciting. This is the best part of the NBA season, and none other than Pat Boyle is here to talk to me. Patty B, what's up, brother?
Patty, what's up, dude? There is life without football. There is life beyond football, I promise you. And, coming up here the next 30, 40 days, honestly, it's not as good as postseason football, but it's the next best thing. We got the NBA season heating up, the final full month of the regular season. We got March Madness, baby. We got college hoops. We got conference tournaments. We got the big dance. So I'm jacked up. And we got St. Patty's Day. So, I'm looking forward to the next 30, 40 days here, man.
We got some exciting stuff. I felt some big zoo energy in that last one there. We got St. Patty's Day. Yeah, and the twang in your voice just sounded like our boy Ed Arzoom in there.
We did a college hoops podcast the other day, so he's rubbing off on me.
There you go. That's
for better or for worse.
Here it goes. So speaking of college hoops, we'll do at the end, we're going to do some rapid fire NBA stuff, but one of those questions will incorporate college hoops. And I know you've been locked into your NCAA men. So we'll talk about perhaps some draft prospect later down the road. When we hit those rapid fire questions, we're also going to hit some big topics. The Knicks and Tom Thibodeau, obviously the Nets and the Sixers and their new looks, the exciting MVP race, which some people want to act like maybe isn't that exciting. I'm here to say, ladies and gentlemen, it is exciting. There's some good stuff. Some interesting conversations about some of our young and upcoming finals contenders, perhaps, amongst some other things. So let's get busy. But first, let's hear from our friends over at DraftKings. Hoops fans, the latest offer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is too good to pass up. I'm talking like a wide open three from the corner, perhaps the most efficient shot in basketball besides a layup or free throw. That's how good it is. You can't pass it up. New customers can bet just $1 on any team and get $150 in free bets if they win. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still take your shot at a big payday. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes with DraftKings daily fantasy basketball contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TBPN. Bet just $1 on any NBA team and get $150 in free bets if they win. That's promo code TBPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus minimum age and location requirements vary by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full list of requirements and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Void where prohibited. Minimum $5 deposit. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Tennessee, call or text the TN Red Line 1-800-889-9789. In Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. DraftKings got some exciting stuff. We'll talk about some odds in a minute because as we approach this, I already mentioned the MVP race. There's also an interesting Rookie of the Year race, and that's some stuff, the games start here, Pat, on Thursday when this podcast released. So there's regular NBA action, but if you're looking to get frisky with some futures, there's actual possibilities to make a pick you're confident in, you're proud of, and try to win some money here in the MVP realm because you look at the odds and there's three people in the realistic range, right? We'll talk about it. That'll be a few topics down the road. But for example, Embiid plus 130, Jokic plus 270, Giannis plus 400. Anyone who tells you that this is already over, they're wrong. So there's opportunities here, and we'll break that down in a minute. Pat, also real quick, WFAN Thursday night. I should say Friday morning, but I can't get that right. Thursday night, midnight on to the morning hours. You're going to be hosting on WFAN. Let me just ask you this. If say basketball was your opening topic, because I'm sure it may or may not be because baseball, what the hell's going on over there. but just say basketball is your opening topic. Are you going Knicks, Thibodeau, and the disgrace that they've been over the past month? Or are you opening with the Nets and their new look roster that has high hopes, but still a lot of question marks?
That's a good question, Pete. And yeah, I always say like Thursday night into Friday morning, because if you say Friday morning, people think
Like
like the
6
normal,
a.m.
like
Yeah,
yeah, the
right.
morning show, which I'm obviously not doing with Boomer and Geo. So I always say Thursday night because most people are awake when midnight rolls around, and then once midnight hits, it is Friday morning. So yeah, midnight to 5 a.m. So by the time this episode comes out, it'll be Thursday, so it'll be later tonight. Yeah, I appreciate you shouting it out. 12 to 5 a.m. And that's a good question. And I think honestly, I'm undecided right now. I think I could go both. If the Nets weren't playing on Thursday, it would absolutely be the Knicks. It would be Tibbs. It would be Julius. It would be RJ getting back to practice. And it would be Leon Rose and Wild Wild West. And they got to be held accountable. And what the hell are they doing? It's basically everybody scapegoating Tibbs right now. But the fact that the Nets play on Thursday, depending if that's a good game and depending on what happens in that game, it definitely gives me some leeway. So if like the Celtics, if the Nets go out and they get buried by the Celtics tomorrow, then maybe I've got my open there. But if it's just a regular run of the mill game and the Nets win by like 3 or 4, I don't know. But I know Boston's 7-point favorite, so I definitely have an option to go with either or, and I definitely will be talking about both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So I know that didn't answer your question, but
well, yeah, I'm trying to help you. Maybe you can look at this as a little production meeting, trying to give you some ideas here. No, right? We'll figure it out as our podcast goes on. Maybe you'll feel more confidently about some certain takes or not. But it's tough with the Nets specifically when they just don't have their guys playing yet, right? You can come out and try and be very critical of them, but you'll end up saying, yeah, like, Kevin Durant wasn't playing. Yeah, Ben Simmons wasn't playing yet. Oh, it was a home game, so Kyrie wasn't playing. So how are you going to really be critical about that specific game? It's almost more overarching until at least Kevin Durant's back and Ben Simmons. The Kyrie thing, who knows what's happening with the mandate. So until some of those guys are playing, it's hard to be too specifically critical. You almost have to be overarching and then like projecting forward. That's a whole nother conversation. So let's start with the New York Knicks then, Pat. We'll start with Tom Thibodeau and all the fluctuation going on in New York. Kemba Walker, they announced today, is not going to be suiting up. He's not going to be hitting the court for the Knicks for the rest of the season, which is something that probably isn't going to affect their day-to-day on the court, unfortunately. But it's still kind of shocking in a lot of ways, just because who Kemba is, the relationship he has maybe with Leon Rose and the chance they took, but now he's out. Not sure if that matters. What's interesting, though, is what Tom Thibodeau has kind of been saying to the media over the past couple weeks and months that is interesting to me because he's never talked like this before, Pat. He's talking about numbers. He's talking about the analytics. He keeps hyping up Alec Burks for some reason, how he's the most likely candidate to take over the starting point guard job because he's been the best by the numbers. And it's something that Knicks fans are like, what numbers, bro? Like, I don't know what you're watching. We're not seeing him be that great. He had a good run early as a bench guy, nice little spot start guy. Hasn't been special, I don't think, right? So Tom Thibodeau is speaking with new language. My question to you, and to keep it open ending so you kind of take it anywhere you want, is Tom Thibodeau doomed? Is he gone no matter what? Is there something that he can do to change his script with this Knicks team and remain the coach going into next year? And overall, is this team just punting the rest of the season?
so it's definitely open ended. I will start by saying the Knicks they're punting, but it's a good punt. It's a punt that gets down inside the 20 because this is what we've been begging for since Tibbs got here, and that's play the young guys. And they've been stuck in this. I know you talk about this so many times. They've been stuck in the mediocre middle where they're obviously not good enough to go further enough to win an NBA title. We found that out very, very brutally last year in the playoffs against Atlanta. And they're obviously not one of the worst teams in the league, although the last month or so they've played like it. But that being said, I think at the end of the season, the way this year has gone, we see the Knicks as winning 36 games, going 36-46, probably finishing 10th or 11th, and probably just missing the NBA with the play-in, which, again, making the play-in for this team really wouldn't do anything. Maybe gives you a couple days of hope or a couple days of glimmer that the Knicks might be able to catch fire. I've been waiting for them to catch fire for weeks. It hasn't happened. So we've been asking Tibbs, And we've been asking Worldwide West and Leon Rose in the front office to play the young guys rather than, oh, well, maybe Kemba can give some flashes of greatness and maybe Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel and Taj Gibson can stay healthy and Julius can start figuring it out, but it's not happening. So I'm glad this is happening, and I'm glad that we're at in this part of the season, because now we're going to see hopefully 25 to 30 minutes a game from Emmanuel Quickly rather than 20. Hopefully we're going to see 20 to 22 minutes a game from Obi instead of just 15. Hopefully we're going to see more Deuce McBride. Hopefully we're going to see more Quentin Grimes. So in that part, in that regard, I like it. And look, Kemba, the what was it, the 44-point, 9 rebound, 8 assist game he had a couple months ago, and the 10-point, 10 rebound, 10 assists, basically, the barely triple double he had on Christmas Day. That's great. That's awesome. Like, it's sad, right? I'm glad that the Knicks took a risk on Kemba. It was high risk, low reward, and it turned out to be low reward. No, I think it was high risk. No, yeah, low risk, high reward.
Yes, there you go.
Yes, exactly. And it turns out that it was low risk because of what Kemba Walker has turned into, and that's all the injuries with the knee. He just doesn't have the explosiveness. He's never been a good defender, but who was the one that made that call? Was that Leon Rose that wanted to bring Kemba Walker here to New York? Probably. It was probably, when we talk about who's been making the decisions to sign guys, it's probably Rose with Worldwide West helping him out. And ultimately, it never really worked out. And again, it sucks to see that happen to Kemba, but it's for the best. He's never going to play another game in a Knicks uniform. And again, some team will probably try again with him next year. Kick the tires, see what Kemba can give you for a couple of months on playing 20 minutes a game. But he was
in a back role, right?
Yeah, exactly. He was stunting the growth of some of these young players, which the Knicks thought that, okay, if we're a playoff team that can maybe get in, get to the second round going into the year, Kemba's going to be a veteran that can help us if he has a game where he can drop 20 points, if he can stay on the perimeter and hit 5 threes. And it never worked out. So ultimately, I'm glad that this happened. Tibbs, I don't think he's not gone. I think he has the backing of Dolan. I think he has the backing of Leon Rose. I think they didn't do him any favors in types of the type of coach he is. Defense first. We saw him get the best out of the Knicks last year. He was NBA Coach of the Year for a reason, right? You don't win NBA Coach of the Year and not be a good coach. We know that he's worn out his welcome before. He did it in Chicago. He did it in Minnesota. The front office moves that they made in the offseason didn't help him, right? We said, okay, look, if Evan Fournier is going to drop 20 points a game and shoot 42% from deep, if Kemba's going to have some flashes of greatness, if all these players that they sign in the offseason, if this is going to work out, okay, awesome. But it hasn't, and their defense took a substantial hit. That was the part that we were all worried about, was how much of offense that you're now boostering will then you have to take a hit on defense. And it turns out it was way too much of a hit because they're mediocre, playing defense at best now. And we see that the way Tibbs likes to coach, it does not mesh with the players that they brought in. So I wouldn't say they set him up for failure, but it had to all work out perfectly. They had to play as good of defense as last year. Tibbs had to nail the rotations, and the injuries to D Rose and the COVID early on, and now the injury to RJ it's been miserable. It's another miserable season in New York sports. So I'm not surprised where we've become accustomed to this. That being said, I think Tibbs still has the backing of the players. I still think he's extremely respected. I still think that this team can have success if they have a positive offseason this year. Again, ultimately, the Knicks are never going to win an NBA title until they land another huge star, which we've been waiting on for 10 years, so don't hold your goddamn breath. But that being said, I don't think Tibbs is gone. I think the Knicks are punting, and it's a good punt. And I'm excited to see, hopefully now, these young guys that they've drafted, hopefully they get the most out of them here.
I agree with a lot of what you said. I'll push back on a thing or two down the road here. First, on Kemba, I put out a video on TikTok and Instagram right when the signing happened. I called it the good, the bad, the ugly, the Kemba Walker signing. And honestly, I think the good, the bad, and the ugly all happened because, like you said, it was low risk. It was a no-brainer to give him a shot. There was almost no reason to not try it out. Now, obviously, it didn't go well, which is why the bad and the ugly come to play. He missed almost 20 games this year. And when he played, he wasn't a good defender, and his offense took a hit. That's literally the good, the bad, the ugly. The injury prone, the diminishing play, and the good was it didn't really cost much, right? And that's exactly how it played out. So the Kemba Walker thing, unfortunate, but it is what it is. On the Tom Thibodeau front, I also put out a video now 2 years ago almost when he got signed as the Knicks head coach. And what I said was pretty simple. I said, if you asked me this a year, now 3 years ago, but a year ago from when they signed him as the head coach, I would have been pretty upset with that hiring. But I looked back and I really tried to dig deep into Tibbs' coaching career, why it worked, why it didn't work, when and where and why. The story is with Tom Thibodeau, if there's talent on the roster, he can win games. That's it. And that goes to be true for a lot of coaches, some more than others. But if there's a talented roster, they will play to a certain level and win a lot of games. It's happened when Derrick Rose was a stud in Chicago. It happened when Derrick Rose was hurt in Chicago. They had talent, they won. When they had talent in Minnesota, they won. When the Knicks had a deep, solid roster last year, they played above their heads and they won. And this year, the biggest mistake was by all of us fans, anyone in the media, anybody projecting the Knicks to be a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. They were never that team. They were never that talented. They don't have that guy. As soon as Julius Randle was looked at as a true number 1 in the playoff series, he wasn't as successful. This entire year, he's been looked at as a true number 1. He hasn't been as successful. And despite all the growth from RJ Barrett that we all love so much, he's not ready to be a number 1. He's a 2-3 at best. And that's just what it is. The depth seemed to be a strength early, and it maybe not has been as big a strength as just a huge contrast from a starting lineup that's been abysmal the entire year. So all that being said, I think that bodes well for Tom Thibodeau possibly keeping this job, but my bet is that he doesn't have the job. My bet is that Leon Rose and Wes want to revamp this because I think the word is out that stars aren't going to want to do what Tom Thibodeau is asking him. Whether they're wrong or right in that notion, I think the belief is we need a coach to find the happy medium between Tom Thibodeau and, for lack of a better example right now, a David Fizdale, where people are like, oh, this guy's great, but he didn't do anything positive, right? Tibbs is the opposite end of the spectrum. They're two opposites. Neither's going to make a great team with this roster, but somebody in the middle is going to find the balance and hopefully allow young guys to grow while still encouraging veterans to be those dudes and be those leaders. Somewhere that got lost this year. The defense wasn't there. The offense was bad. And I think the saving grace for Tom Thibodeau is what you outlined. If he leans in, really leans in, and has a good, strong final push here in the last 20 or so games, even if they go 10-10, but they play competitive basketball and they look relevant and Grimes plays better and McBride shows some flashes and quickly is not just a guy taking heat checks, but actually facilitating an offense, Tibbs saves his job. Tibbs saves his job. But if he tries to run Alec Burks, Fournier, Randall for 35 minutes a game, and they go 10-10 or they go 8-12 or whatever record that's mediocre to bad, then he's done. His only hope to save this job is through the young guys. And I think we all see it. All the fans have been asking for it for years, even before Tibbs was the coach. We've been asking for our young guys to get a real chance because we're not that team. We're not going as far as anybody thinks we are. So we might as well see what we have. If he doesn't do that, he's gone. His saving grace is the guys that Leon and West just drafted. Grimes, McBride, etc. Quickly, those crew. If those guys don't help them play competitive basketball, Tibbs is gone because he's not doing his best to put this team in the right direction.
And that's fair, and I agree with that. But that being said, I think a crucial question that needs to be asked here is: did Leon Rose and William Wesley set Tibbs up to fail this year, knowing the type of coach he is, that he's defense first, and they went in and brought Fournier and Kemba. And again, I know we all love to try to see the fault in the stars, or not even the opposite. We like to see the silver lining in that, and we like to see, and we would love to say, oh, you know what, Fournier, that's the 3 guy that the Knicks didn't have as another scorer, and if Kemba can be healthy, we foolishly thought Kemba had really anything left to give you an effort of a high level starting point guard in the NBA. All right, hey, maybe the Knicks, this is the bolstering they needed, but again, we see now the reality of it, and we see that a defensive-minded coach whose front office brought in two guys who play no lick of defense, do you think that they were maybe setting him up so that if they had a bad year, they had a reason to fire him?
Yeah, my counter question would be, do they care? Exactly. You kind of just got there at the end. That would be my counter question. Do they care if they set him up to fail or not? Because as a general manager who has some sort of job security at this point, or at least another year or two to get going, they're going to look at other people first before they blame themselves, right? So Leon Rose and Wes aren't going to come out here and be like, Tom did a good job because we really did not set him up for success this year. That's not how it's going to play out. How do we see it in every sport? It happens in football the most. You fire the coach, you get a new quarterback, and you try to save your job for another 2 years as a GM. That's more likely, I think, in this scenario than the front office being like, we're going to give Tom another run because we did a bad job last summer, right? They're going to say we took calculated risks. They didn't work out and Tom wasn't able to put it together. I think that's as likely as the opposite. If I had to be a betting man, he's not the coach next year. Another saving grace, though, if you have to look at all perspectives, Tibbs and Leon Rose are like buddies, right? Like they've been around the block together, and that might play something here where he deserves another chance in Leon Rose's eyes. And I wouldn't be that mad about it. Now, frankly, I always looked at Tibbs as a bridge coach. I didn't expect him to be the coach to bring this team to a championship level contender just because the timeline wouldn't make sense. It doesn't happen like that, right? Like if you think about the Mark Jackson reign in Golden State, like he was never going to make it to the peak, whether he was the right coach or the wrong coach, which I don't think he was the right coach. He did a good job for what it was worth. He was never going to make it to the pinnacle because that's just not how coaching works in 90% of the NBA, unless you're in one of these franchises like Miami, San Antonio, and I don't even know who else comes to mind in that regard. Like these franchises will change coaches every 2 to 4 years if they have to. The Bucks with Giannis's prime went through a couple coaches, so I just don't think Tibbs was ever going to make it to the pinnacle. So if they have a chance to reset it now, I think they might take that chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think too. I think the addition of getting Derrick Rose back, hopefully, I don't know if he's going to play on Friday against Miami. I think he's
that.
What?
We missed that man.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like the whole team, which is crazy.
Yeah, literally. I think he is going to be back, definitely playing within the next 7 days. So that is also going to be huge for Tibbs. And we see what D Rose can do to this offense, whether, coming on with the second unit and making guys like Obi and Quickly that much better. But I think Tibbs, he hasn't done that. He hasn't done a great job, obviously, this year. He's done a bad job, from getting RJ Barrett basically hurt, leaving him on the floor with 30 seconds left in a game that was already decided and having him sprain his ankle. RJ, of course, is going to defend him and say, it could have happened in the first quarter, but he shouldn't have been on the floor. To the minutes, not starting the young guys at all, and not playing the young guys relatively at all in the first few months of the season. And even still, we're still asking for it. So I get that. I'm not saying Tibbs has been perfect, and I'm not saying none of this is his fault. I just think at the same time, as much as we want to blame Tibbs and scapegoat Tibbs, we need to be blaming Leon Rose. Like, look at some of the free agents the Knicks just totally whiffed on. First of all, Kemba, whiff. We said it was, low risk, high reward. And Brad Stevens could have told you what was going to happen with that last year, but we foolishly thought we could have got something out of that. They could have got something out of Kemba, but like a guy that totally fits Tibbs' system that I never heard anything with the Knicks going after him, Alex Caruso. Did the Knicks the Knicks talk to him? Did they make an offer? 4 years, $37 million. You're telling me they couldn't have made a contract offer to him instead of giving Kemba 2 years, 20, and Fournier 3 years, 50, or whatever he got, and re-signing Nerlens Noel and everybody else that re-signed. Why, no talks. We've heard talks, but nothing serious ever with Lonzo Ball. DeMar DeRozan, obviously the steal of free agency. Everybody laughed at Chicago for the sign and trade in the 3 years, $82 million. He's an MVP candidate. And yes, I will elaborate on that further for everybody saying he doesn't deserve him to be in the conversation. There were so many good signings that could have been had in free agency and for not an exorbitant amount of money. And when we look back, basically all the Knicks did was re-sign a couple of guys that have not made a huge impact and then sign Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker.
Right.
So for a team
one name you didn't mention is the steadying force of that lineup last year, Reggie Bullock. Reggie
Yeah.
Bullock, the epitome of a 3-and-D guy who hit a high percentage of threes and played great defense every single night. One-on-one defense as well as team defense. Like, that's a guy who you let walk and you say, "Oh, he's a nice player, but he didn't make that big a difference." But he was the glue. He was a glue guy for them who banged down open shots and grinded on defense. I think we miss him. I think we miss Reggie Bullock. Like, right now, just think about this. Not that Fournier would come off the bench. He probably should in a lot of situations. He'd probably be best off as an offensive player off the bench. But if Bullock was the starter next to RJ Barrett and Fournier was in the second unit with Derrick Rose, that sounds pretty good. Sounds a lot better than what they've been running out all year.
Yeah, and the Reggie, not signing Reggie doesn't look that bad because he's not having that great of a year with Dallas, and it's kind of hard being basically the third wing guy off the outside of behind Tim Hardaway, and his numbers are down. But I mean, again, not like why didn't you try to re-sign him, especially because he fit in so well. And another guy that I think they miss badly from 2 years ago, our man Bobby Portis.
Oh, yeah. Portis, bro. Guy's
I
crazy.
mean, he has turned into an absolute stud for Milwaukee, and the injury to Lopez helped him become basically the fourth go-to guy outside of Holiday, Giannis, and Middleton. They're big three. He's the fourth best player on that team. I'll make that argument. And he has been sensational for this year. And he's, they call him Bobby Portis because he's knocking down threes. He wanted to shoot in the three-point contest. He's been awesome this year. And I just think some of the guys that the Knicks have failed to sign and have let go over the last couple of years, plus the guys they have signed and, hasn't really worked out that well. I think much more blame deserves to go on Leon Rose. And again, there isn't enough because we haven't heard him speak all year, right? So obviously Tibbs is the easy scapegoat. And when we see the Knicks blow 3 25-point leads over the span of a week and a half, you immediately point to coaching. Coaching, how do you let that happen? That's on the coach. He deserves to be fired. How could this happen? When your starting point guard goes down for 2 months, 3 months, and now your probably best player in RJ Barrett's been hurt for the last couple of weeks. I mean, are we really that surprised that the Knicks season is just totally coming off the rails? Like, if we brought Monty Williams in here 3 weeks ago without D Rose and RJ Barrett, is Monty Williams going 10-5 over the last 15 games?
Absolutely not. No one is. No. I mean, if you pick the top 3 coaches in the league, maybe they do better. But yeah, I'm 100% with you. The craziest part about this final run before the All-Star break is that some of those losses they played so good for
35 minutes.
You can argue like they were on the right track, like getting back to the right thing, and they just kept blowing these leads, and it was like, did any of this matter? Like, does anything make sense here? And then you sit there with 13 out of 16 losses in a row. You're like, what the hell just happened? This season's over. But the matter of fact is, not the story, the moral of the story. Yeah, moral of the story, matter of fact, whatever you want to say, is that it's another year. Take last year away. It's another year where we're sitting here with 20 games left saying, just play the young guys. We got to see what we got. Let's make sure we get a good pick because we're not going to be making noise in the playoffs anyway. And this year that we thought put us on a trajectory to being a consistent playoff year was more of a blip and not reality. And we sit here again with 20 games remaining, begging for the young guys to get a chance. That's where we are again.
Yeah, and I don't understand what the hell is going on with Cam Reddish. I don't get why they didn't start playing him right away. I just don't get the thinking behind that.
That's still be playing now, because that Tibbs is basically now going to have to do whatever they ask at this point because he knows he's gone. Unless he's going to say, "I'm gone anyway. I'm going out my own way." Like he might go rogue like that. You never know.
Well, that's the thing. That's what's gonna make this next month, 2 months really, really interesting. If we do see things that you said, you've heard him speak different language. He's talking about analytics. He's talking about the numbers. That's the front office, and maybe that's Tibbs saying, "Okay, you know what? I've been too stubborn." And instead of playing Julius 38, 40 minutes a night and playing Fournier 34 minutes and not giving guys off the bench a chance and being stubborn with the rotations, okay, I want to coach this team. I think there is success that we can have in the future. I think we're one big piece away from being an NBA Finals caliber team. Okay, I'm willing to talk it out and to kind of change and to hopefully kind of evolve here as the head coach.
Right. Like I
And
tried my way. Now I'll try yours.
maybe that does get him his job back next year because, I mean, I don't know about you, Pete. I know I know it hasn't gone well. It's gone horribly. And I know, again, I said it before, Tibbs has not been perfect and he's made a lot of mistakes and all the things we like to criticize. And I was criticizing him last year when they were going on that unbelievable run.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, why isn't Quickly playing more? Why isn't Obi Toppin playing more? And I literally did a podcast with Sal and he goes, well, who knows more, you or Tibbs? And I started laughing. But now everybody's smarter than Tibbs, right? Because now everybody's been questioning him now that the Knicks are 44-30 or whatever the hell the record was in a shortened season. Nobody's going to question him. But now when they're 25-34, everybody's going to question him, and everybody's an NBA head coach now. So I just think that if Tibbs gets fired, like who's the head coach that comes in here? And I know there's several candidates. There's coaches that.
Somebody says Mark Jackson to me, I just lose it, bro. I lose it. I don't even know what to tell people who think that Mark Jackson should be the coach of their franchise anymore. Like the dude he hasn't coached in like 8 years. Like, what are we talking about here? I had a Nets fan in my life who wants Steve Nash fired so bad. We're going to segue to the Nets now in a second. So there's a nice little way to get there. He wants Steve Nash fired so bad. And I'm like, who's going to replace him? I'm like, I'm not saying Steve Nash is doing great. Who are you replacing Steve Nash with in his second year after he dealt with what he's dealt with and all the injuries? That's going to do better. And he says Mark Jackson. I go, oh my God, what are you talking about? I want to grab his face and shake him. I'm like, what are you talking about? Wait, let's put a bow though in the Knicks thing, real quick, so we can move on from this conversation. I think now talking it out with you, I think there's a better chance than I originally expected for Tibbs to stay as the coach. But I think you and I are strongly in the minority here. I think Knicks fans in general right now want him out. They're done. They want to be on to the next one, for better or worse. They're out. And Knicks fans, I hate to say this, are not always right. I know people like to say like New York fans, smartest basketball fans. I don't buy it all the time. Most of the time I don't. And this is one of the situations where maybe now I'm leaning the other way. Like maybe Tibbs does deserve one more year. This roster probably won't overhaul to become a championship contender by next year. So what are we rushing for, right? What are we rushing to take away continuity? Let's see what happens, see how we can get better. But Knicks fans in general, I think they're sitting here saying, you two are ridiculous. Tibbs needs to be gone yesterday, and that's it. That's what people are saying.
I just say this too, like I think with the injuries to Rose, the injuries to RJ, and how the front office either set him up for failure or just had a dog shit offseason in retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's enough for Tibbs to lose his job. I don't think it's fair for Tibbs to lose his job. Again, you mentioned it. At the end of the day, whether it's fair or not, it doesn't matter. Whatever Leon and Worldwide West want, that's what's going to be the decision. And will Tibbs and Leon being close factor into that? Will that help him keep his job? Who knows? But at the end of the day, like, again, was anybody saying, oh, Taylor Jenkins is going to be the next greatest head coach in the NBA when he took over at Memphis? No, they got Ja Morant. The guy's a fucking MVP candidate. And that's why Memphis is so damn good, and Taylor Jenkins looks like a great head coach. You take Ja Morant off the Memphis Grizzlies, is Taylor Jenkins winning them as a head coach? Is he helping them win 50 games?
If I'm not mistaken, they did not miss a beat when Ja Morant missed 10 games this year.
They did it.
They
did it. But at the same time, Anthony Melton and Bane and everybody else were playing out their goddamn board.
They have a strong team. And I said this last year on a podcast. I was like, if Taylor Jenkins was in New York right now, people would be going crazy. Like if he was the coach of the Knicks and they were doing what the Grizzlies are doing, people would lose their shit. They really would. Wait, last thing on the Knicks before we move on, because we really went way too long here already. Did you see the video at the Corday concert of Knicks fans in New York City chanting "Fuck Trae Young"? I gotta sound off on this for real quick.
I think I'm lockstep with you, so I'm gonna tee you up here. I just think it's totally embarrassing and pathetic.
Embarrassing and pathetic. What are you doing at a Corday concert, who is a fantastic artist, who I absolutely love, who's not even a New York guy? My guy is like I think he's born in the Midwest. He grew up in Maryland. He's not a New Yorker. What are we doing? Why are we chanting "Fuck Trae Young" at a Corday concert? He's not even an Atlanta guy. Corday comes out sipping his drink like, leave me out of this. I don't know what you guys are talking about right now, but like, leave me out of this. I don't want none of this. For 1 second, I saw that and was like, haha, Knicks fans are funny. Like they just chant this. And then I was like, no, pathetic. I'm embarrassed to be a part of that because one guy who absolutely owned our team, he demolished our franchise in a freaking one playoff series that was the first round. Trae Young would be the best Knicks player, best Knicks point guard, perhaps in the history outside Walt Clyde Frazier. And he beat us once, owned us in our own home. And we say fuck Trae Young at a Corday concert? It's pathetic, Pat. It really is.
And those might be the same Knicks fans that want Tibbs fired. So let's consider that when we talk about which population of the fan base wants Tibbs to lose his job because they see the team sputter and think, oh, fire the coach. Oh, fire Tibbs. And don't watch the games. And let's also consider the fact that I saw this on Twitter. There should be a university course in the psychology department taught upon the devastating toll and the devastating effects that Trae Young has had on the city of New York.
Couldn't agree more. It's
brutal. It's brutal. How does that man?
He did what Reggie Miller did over the course of like a decade in one playoff series.
Yes.
And owned us. Like, I can't stress it enough. He crushed the Knicks. He did anything he wanted. Anything he wanted. If I wasn't a Knicks fan, I would have been in awe saying, Trae Young, you are the best. Like, you're amazing. But I was hurt because I was rooting for the Knicks, right? And I was like, damn, bro, that guy crushed us.
He single-handedly set the franchise back 3 years.
He single-handedly got getting Tibbs fired. He broke Julius Randle. Like, he just did it all by himself in one series.
And he destroyed the psychology and the psyche and the brains of many Knicks fans, millions of Knicks fans.
Knicks fans everywhere. The Bing Bong saved us for like 2 weeks, and now we're back to misery. Unbelievable. Let's move on, Pat. We need to get off this topic of conversation. And let's talk about something more exciting, but perhaps frustrating just the same. And we'll put this into one topic here to make it a little bit shorter. New look Nets, new look Sixers. A lot of things are happening. James Harden will be back more or sooner, I should say, than Durant and Simmons together for Brooklyn. But we got two new teams here, two teams that do have legitimate title chances if they get right and they get well. So let me ask you, and you can start with whoever you want based off this question. Do you have a winner of this trade? Like, do you want to wait and see? Like, I don't know. It's too late to now just break down the whole trade. But basically, let me ask you this. Ideal world, Kevin Durant, Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving are playing. Ideal world, Joel Embiid, Seth Curry's on the Brooklyn Nets now. Joel Embiid and James Harden are playing as well in Philly. Who do you like more? Who got better, or who now is on a higher mark of the Eastern Conference?
Again, we're going to see how this plays out, and ultimately, if these two teams meet in the postseason, oh my God, it'll be 30 for 30 worthy, hopefully. And the winner of that series, obviously, everyone's going to proclaim won the trade, or whatever team goes further in the postseason. But just given face value, and because we still haven't seen Simmons play, we still haven't seen Harden play, I think both teams got better. And I think we've talked about this before. I think it was a really, really good trade for both sides. I'd say the Nets maybe slightly came out on top on better. Because you also got the addition of Seth Curry and you got Drummond, who's a rebounding machine and has killed the Nets so many times in the past. And then you also get one of the best defenders in the entire NBA in Ben Simmons. But I think, Pete, you will agree with me, a locked in at the top of his game, James Harden, makes those three pieces look like chump change. And I think you can agree with me, if Harden and Embiid can find a good 1-2 punch relationship and chemistry, the Philadelphia 76ers are going to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they're that good. Again, people love to shit on James Harden, and trust me, I do too, because he's a bitch and he's a baby with the way he has single-handedly walked himself out of Houston and then walked himself out of Brooklyn. Say what you will about Kyrie's vaccination and James Harden being scapegoated for the Nets' terrible run when Durant went down, because it was basically him that had to shoulder the load and he was getting shit on when Kyrie's only playing half the games. All fair and all good. But And again, it's all fair to clown on James Harden for everything he's done in his postseason failures. And I've said before on this very podcast, when the Nets' big three was still intact, James Harden is a lifetime loser and will
Yes.
never win an NBA title in his life. That being said, with the addition of right now the MVP frontrunner and some really good surrounding pieces, who knows? Maybe it'll be a 3-1 lead that Doc Rivers blows again. Maybe it'll be Tobias Harris going for 25 in game 1 and then 9 points in game 7. We
Oh,
don't know. But at the end of the
it
day,
all feels too real.
I think the immediate returns and on face value, the Nets came out slightly better because, again, you get a great 3-point shooter, you get a rebounding machine, and you get an elite defender. You get basically 3 different facets all to make your team better. But at the end of the day, Pete, Harden playing at the top of his game, which we know is still true. We know is still possible. I'm not saying, I don't think anybody's going to say that James Harden's career is now all of a downturn. Harden and Embiid, that 1-2 punch, along with Tobias Harris and all the other pieces and Thibault and the pieces that the Sixers have, they've got more potential to go further.
In my man's sleep, my boy was sleeping through the season, right? He was overweight. He didn't care. He wanted out. 22, 8, and 10. And guess what? 4th in the league in free throw attempts, Pat. In his sleep. And I have been the biggest James Harden defender that anyone who listens to this show probably knows over the past 5 years, maybe longer than that. It was hard to defend him this year. It was pretty hard to come on any podcast or go on Twitter and start being like, nah, like James Harden is actually doing good and this and that. Like, it was hard to do that because it wasn't really true. But in his sleep, with all the bad that was going on, 22, 8, and 10. And when they had like a pretty good run to start the season, when James Harden and Kevin Durant were still playing, like Kevin Durant might have been carrying the load. James Harden was still playing pretty good and they were winning games. And I think even though it was talked about a lot, it wasn't talked about enough that they played 16 games together and they were 13-3 in those 16 games with the big three, with Harden, Durant, and Kyrie Irving. So the potential was never reached, but the potential was there. And that team was winning a championship if they stayed healthy. And championships don't operate in the world of ifs. So they didn't, and they fell apart, and that sucks. However, like you mentioned, a locked in James Harden can do some things. And you're going to get James Harden on his best behavior at minimum for the rest of this season, at minimum. But I put the trust in Daryl Morey that they have a good relationship and that James Harden wanted to be there, if so he says, that you get a year and a half at least of James Harden on his best behavior. What that means in the playoffs, I'm not exactly sure, but I know that this is going to segue into our MVP race. I know that this guy, James Harden, is going to come in and look great for Philly over the next couple weeks. And I am loving Pat. I'm loving so much that Philly fans across New Jersey and Pennsylvania are now coming to the defenses of James Harden and hyping up James Harden after he's been a guy that they hated so bad for the past year and a half and probably before that too. Right? Because he was getting the MVP love when Joel Embiid, who played 22 games, probably should have got the MVP or whatever the hell Philly fans say all the time. Like, like now they sit out here and they go on Twitter and they're like, James Harden, quite the shooter. Love his step back. I don't think he pounds the ball into the ground way too much at all. I love him. And I am enjoying it. And now all these people who hated James Harden for the past couple of years are going to see him go off again. And we're going to be reminded that he's still a freaking animal. And yeah, I'm pretty damn excited to watch Philly. I can't lie.
Bro, James Harden's ISO isn't killing the team's offensive flow. Are you kidding me? It's just another weapon. It's another play to go to.
If you think about it, him and Joel Embiid are really the two best isolation players. So, like having two and not just one, like it might just balance out in the playoffs.
I just love it. And that's like, you see the hypocrisy of fans in general. How many Nets fans are defending Ben Simmons vehemently when we all, as a collective fan base of basketball, destroyed this guy just a half a year ago? And how many people that have, and all, like you said, how many times have Philly fans shit on James Harden and now they're rushing, sprinting, swarming to his defense?
They can't do it fast enough. On the Ben Simmons front, too. It's funny that these two guys are traded together because I've been like the biggest Harden and Ben Simmons fan in their like entire careers. Basically, I've been a huge Ben Simmons guy. And I always wanted to remind people during this whole crap with him over the past year and a half. Well, not year and a half, past year, I guess now. Like, He's freaking awesome, bro. He's so good. Like, we're not talking about like Tony Allen's level of offense. Like, even with Ben Simmons' horrendous ability to not shoot, or his inability to shoot, I should say, he's still an incredibly effective offensive player. And his defense is like Tony Allen. Like, he's that dude. He's an all NBA level player, right? He's a 3-time All-Star who's 25 years old. Like, let's not act like this guy can't play. He can't affect the team. Let's look at the standings straight up right now. Where were the Sixers at last year, Pat?
Fourth.
Squarely in first.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
They were squarely in first place. So your boy Ben Simmons, who can't play, clearly helped y'all, because you'll basically have the same exact team just without Ben Simmons, and you're sitting in fourth place with Joel Embiid literally standing on his head every single night.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing – sorry.
That's it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the biggest thing, too, is his transition play, offense and defense. The fact that he can get out and get the Nets fast break points, which they struggled to do so, and we saw them with the Harden isolation and the half-court sets and not being able to move fast unless they had some of their guys off the bench like Kessler Edwards, like Killer Cam Thomas, and then also on transition D. How fucking brutal have the Nets been on defense in transition and not being able to stop the dribble drive penetration against good guarded teams and fast break opportunities. Simmons obviously plugs that hole. And yeah, he's a fantastic player when you take him for face value. But again, we know that the lights shine brightest, the Twitter fingers work fastest in the postseason, and that's where he's had his biggest struggles. And one moment under the bucket with Trae Young has sort of kind of defined the last 8 months of this guy's career. Unfair or fair as it is, take it for what you will. But yeah, I mean, let's not pretend that Ben Simmons isn't an all-star caliber player.
Now, let me just show you this real quick, Pat. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it along, but I'll explain it. How hilarious is this? This is the Brooklyn Nets homepage on ESPN for their stats. And because of how many games Kevin Durant has played, he does not qualify for team leaders. James Harden is currently still the team leader in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks for the Brooklyn Nets. All
and blocks.
Major categories is just James Harden leading the team. And that's incredible. And that goes back to my point about the Steve Nash thing as well, too. Like, people who are mad at Steve Nash as Nets fans, there's plenty of people out there I see on Twitter and talk to. What do you want this man to do? Kevin Durant's played 36 games. Kyrie Irving has played 14 games. LaMarcus Aldridge was coming back. He's not quite who he was 3 years ago. Nick Claxton's been hurt. Joe Harris has missed almost the entire season. Blake Griffin's not even what he was last year, let alone 3 years ago. Like, what is Steve Nash supposed to do? Like, what did you expect when Patty Mills is the second best player on the team on a nightly basis for like 3 to 6 weeks of the season? What are we doing? And now you bring in real depth. You include Cam Thomas in the mix. You have Patty Mills still. Now you get Goran Dragic in the buyout market. You get Seth Curry. You have Ben Simmons, the elite defender that he is. The Nets are looking freaking stacked now, Pat. Like, if Kevin Durant comes back healthy, I'm freaking scared again of the Brooklyn Nets if I'm an opponent. I'm scared. I'm always scared of Kevin Durant. Now I'm scared again, even more so with Ben Simmons playing defense, Kyrie perhaps now getting the mandate lifted, and this depth looking real again.
Yeah, Eric Adams ultimately might be the Nets MVP if he finally lifts this mandate, which he's honestly like started to double back, not double down. He's started to revert back to, maybe I did make a mistake. And I think
he didn't make the rule. He wasn't the mayor when the rule.
That's true. Well, yeah, but he had the opportunity to lift it and he didn't.
Correct.
Which again, that was 2 months ago, whenever he finally took office, and the numbers for COVID were still pretty damn high back in December and January. Once we hit March and April, like when the weather gets warm, that's like the downturn. That's the down season. That's COVID's off season, if you will. That mandate probably is going to get lifted. And Kyrie's probably going to be able to play every single game. And I saw on Twitter, too, if James Harden just waited a couple more damn weeks. But no, that was never going to happen.
He had a foot out the door. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. I think the Sixers have a higher ceiling now because they had a zero in Ben Simmons who wasn't playing. And now they have an MVP who clearly can still put up numbers. And maybe with Joel Embiid being the closer on the team, which Kevin Durant was going to act as with the James Harden on the Nets, if Embiid can be that closer, then James Harden doesn't have to worry about choking it too bad, right? So both of these teams can really make noise, and we'll talk more about contenders in a minute. We got to move on. We got to talk about some other stuff. What do you got?
Just really quickly here, 30 seconds too, just to tie in the Nash thing that you were talking about with some people saying, oh, Nash should get fired. He's basically the exact opposite of Tibbs. You're talking about Tibbs, who's hands-on, has so much of a role in how the team plays and how the team runs offensively and defensively, where Steve Nash he's closer to a baseball manager than he is a basketball coach, where it's all right, just keep everything together, keep everything glued. But the players will do what they know how to do. You know, Kyrie saying, "Oh, well, some nights I'll be the coach and whatnot." Like Steve Nash isn't telling these guys, other than maybe running a set out of a timeout, which I've seen the Nets come out of timeouts and basically not change anything other than hope to have more energy and be better on defense and not dragging their goddamn feet around. Like you have Knicks fans calling for Tibbs to get fired. You have some Nets fans. Very few probably Nets fans saying Steve Nash should get fired. You have two totally different coaches, and both of these teams have been hit by injuries this year. So, again, to finish off the Knicks from back before, I don't know what kind of coach you'd want then. Would you want a Steve Nash type of coach? You don't have the talent to have that kind of coach. And if you're the Nets, do you want a Tibbs kind of coach, where then star players like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and dare I throw Ben Simmons into that conversation, might get turned off by a coach who was too hard on them?
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. It's right in New York, right in our own backyard. They'll pick your poison. You can't have it both ways. So you kind of have to pick your poison in that regard. And yeah, I'm sure you could make an argument. Certain coaches find the balance, but you look at Frank Vogel, a guy who can actually coach, clearly has a track record of coaching well on many different occasions, different teams, different conferences, doesn't matter. My guy's getting on the hot seat for some reason with that roster, with Russell Westbrook. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. We'll get to the Lakers in a little bit. Let's move on, though. Talk quickly about MVP. Well, let's try to do this in like 5 minutes here because we're already going a little long and we have a lot more NBA stuff to get to. So right now, the MVP race is Joel Embiid plus 130, Nikola Jokic plus 270, Giannis Antetokounmpo plus 400, and then Steph and Ja Morant right at that plus 1,000, plus 1,100 range. You mentioned DeMar DeRozan as well. I didn't write down his odds. I can pull them up.
I see him on this website covers.com, which released 3 hours ago updated odds. He's plus 2,000.
Yeah, I have him at plus 2,200, and that's right behind Devin Booker at plus 1,800. So that's blasphemy to you. So give me your MVP, discussion take, if you will, and then who you're betting on. Maybe not. I don't know. Give it to me all. Give it to me all. Who you think's going to win? Who you'd put your money on? What do you think of the discussion in general? Let me hear it all.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. I think DeMar is getting totally disrespected for what he's done this year. Almost 29 points per game. He's having one of the best shooting seasons in the last 20 years. He is an absolute sniper from mid-range. He hits maybe a three-pointer a game. So he's been the best inside scorer that's not a center. I think that the NBA has seen in a couple of years, probably since one of the LeBron years when he was with Miami. I'm sure you could probably look up stats to support that. I think the numbers say it themselves. What is he shooting from the field right now?
So he's got 52% from the field overall. He's 34% from three, which is not bad for him on just 1.8 attempts. So he doesn't even hit 1 3 per game.
Yeah, but, which is absurd. A guy that's shooting 52%, he's taking 20 to 25 shots a night.
His effective field goal percentage is on par. It's actually just 0.03 above Joel Embiid at 533.
And he's doing that in a season where they've missed Caruso for several weeks. They've missed Lonzo Ball for several weeks. They've missed Zach LaVine for several weeks. It's basically been DeMar DeRozan and fucking Nick Vucevic. And Ayo Dosunmu, don't count out my boy Ayo because he has been phenomenal for them.
Love
but
Ayo.
We look at what, all those guys that have been hurt, like their third, fourth, fifth, sixth best players. The Bulls are tied for first in the East with Miami. They are tied for first in the East with Miami, and they've missed Lonzo, Caruso, and LaVine all for several games each. And DeMar's just steadily going about his business, 35 a night, 38 a night, 40 a night, 42 a night. I mean, he's breaking Wilt Chamberlain records out here for some of the numbers he's putting up. Mm-hmm. So to have him that far down the list is absurd to me. I'm not saying he should be an NBA MVP favorite, but to have him at plus 2,200 odds is absolutely ridiculous. Now, who I'm going to put? So I would throw. He's not going to win it, but I mean, I would throw. That's something I'd maybe put $10 on,
Right.
just in case he does continue to score 40 a night,
For
and the
fun.
Bulls
Okay.
and yeah, the Bulls lock up a top 3 seed. You can say, "Ha, see, I called that one. I called that miracle." But what I'm putting my money on, and again, I just think when we hear like 3, 4, 5 big media heads say who they have as MVP, everybody then just swarms and becomes sheep. Um, I think that's what's happening with Joel Embiid. And I think Nikola Jokic is going to win the MVP this year. I think he should win the MVP. I think the numbers that he has put up, and again, you look at a guy that has, and I know Joel hasn't had Ben Simmons, and I know that, Tobias Harris is a solid number 2, and Furkan Korkmaz hasn't shot that well this year, and they don't have a lot of scores, and Joel, you could say, is single-handedly keeping them inside the top 4 in the East, and the numbers he's putting up are absurd. But you look at Jokic doing all of this without Jamal Murray, without Michael Porter, and a Nuggets team that I think he is single-handedly has at 33-25 in the West. And again, just the numbers are pure insanity. The numbers he's putting up this year are pure insanity. 26 points, 14 rebounds, 8 assists, 57% from the field. We've seen him drop triple doubles like they're going out of style. Like when Russell Westbrook was stat padding triple doubles. Nikola Jokic is putting up legit triple doubles because he's running the offense. He's getting inside. He's scoring at will. He's grabbing 14 rebounds a night like he's Andre Drummond. And he's also running the offense and dishing out 8 assists. And he's setting up a team that is missing 2 of their best 4 players and keeping them at 8 games above 500 and is a legit threat in the West, in my opinion. So I get the Embiid argument. Trust me, he's the MVP frontrunner. But I just think Jokic at plus 275 odds right now. That's ridiculous to me as well. I think that should be much closer than it is.
I'm with you, and I think what I want to say first and foremost is anybody who tells you it's anybody and it's not close is wrong. That's the person who you don't need to listen to, right? If anybody says, "Oh, it's Embiid and it's not close," wrong. It's Jokic and it's not close, wrong. It's Giannis and wrong. It is close. It is very, very close. With all the things you just said, I don't want to repeat anything too much. The guy's out for Philly. The guy's out for Denver. You can argue what's more important, Ben Simmons versus Jamal Murray and Michael Porter, whatever. They're 2 games apart in the standings. So don't tell me that the Sixers standings makes a difference when the Nuggets standings don't. What you're telling me when you say Embiid is the guy and it's not close is that you don't watch the Nuggets. And that's okay. I don't expect everyone to be a freak like me and watch the Nuggets play the Kings on a Tuesday night. That's something I do. I have to deal with that on my own, right? But like, don't just not acknowledge the guy putting up historic numbers following a historic season. He's the reigning MVP. He has the record right now. He's in line to have the highest PER of all time. Of all time, Pat. That's ridiculous. And I don't even love PER that much, but like when you can break a record, let's talk about it here. If you talk about win shares, which is a number I look at more from Basketball Reference, Jokic is a head above everybody else. He's the only person above 10 win shares this year. He's at 10.6. Following him is Giannis 9.8, Chris Paul 8.7, Joel Embiid 8.3. That's quite a big drop off. Like what Jokic is doing is silly. The whole thing runs through him. And if you don't at least put them even right now, I can't really talk to you. And that doesn't even bring in the Giannis factor, where this dude's insane as well, right? So I'm 100% with you. And here's now my take on what's going to happen, Pat. And I think you might like this take. We just talked about this guy named James Harden with a big beard. He's going to show up in Philly and start dropping 30 points a night, perhaps 10 assists. In his sleep, he puts up 22, 8, and 10. That might hurt Joel Embiid's case a little bit when Jokic continues to play without not 2 of his best 4 players, Pat, without his 2 best players in Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Maybe you could argue Will Barton on a good night is better than one of those dudes. It's Murray, Porter, and Jokic. That's their big 3. They're gone. They're not here. Jokic is going to keep doing silly stuff. Embiid's going to do silly stuff next to another guy doing silly stuff. And that bolsters up the Jokic stock here. And there's just enough push from like the nerd community and the other people in the NBA media world who aren't the Kellermans and Stephen A's and the Nick Wrights of the world, who are letting everyone know that Jokic is not joking. So I'm here on the Jokic train. I'm putting my money on the plus 270. I love the DeMar story. Been on DeMar for a little bit now since he really joined the Spurs. I've been all over his growth as a player and his as a playmaker. John Morant's great. He's not there yet. Steph fell off a bit. It's the big three this year: Embiid, Joker, and Giannis. And I think the Harden thing could help seal it for the Joker.
Yeah, and you could also you looking, and I was looking today. Michael Porter and Jamal Murray both might be back before the regular season ends, but it's not going to be playing enough games to.
Yeah, or it's not going to be James Harden level.
Yeah, exactly, and it's not going to be enough to take away the numbers that Jokic has been putting up. And I hate that. I mean, it's worth the argument, obviously, because you see how valuable somebody is when other pieces are missing. Right? Like, who knows? Like, we don't really get a true sense of just how damn good Devin Booker is because CP3 has been phenomenal. Now we are. Now we're going to see just really how real Devin Booker is now that CP3 is probably going to miss the rest of the regular season. Mm-hmm. And if DeAndre Ayton's hurt, or if, some of the other, if Jay Crowder's hurt, like, we're going to have to see then Devin Booker step up his defense as well. And we're going to see just what type of all-around MVP type player he is. But the fact that we've been able to see that this year from Jokic, we've been able to see that from Embiid, shows you just how damn good these guys are when they still have their teams inside the top 5, top 4 of the standings in their respective conferences without their other best players.
I have nothing else to add. That was perfect. And I can't wait. This is perfect timing for the world of sports. Football was so awesome this year, and we rode that wave so hard. And then between like conference final week and then Super Bowl and now able to start getting the NBA Pistons turning again. I ain't talk about Detroit. And now I'm all the way back, baby. Like I said, I'm watching Nuggets Kings on a Wednesday and I'm here for it. Like that's where I'm back, baby. I'm so back. Let's do some rapid fire though, Pat. We're going to expand more on some of these topics, but we're already at an hour. So let's just rapid fire my final like 4 or 5 questions for you here. And we'll try to keep this one moving quick. So first rapid fire question for you. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's not even talk about the Lakers. Is that fine? Can I veto my own topic list and can we not even talk about the Lakers?
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that if you are.
Yeah, let's save that for like another day because everybody talks about them all the time, bro. Oh my God. What are you going to do? Russ Westbrook is not. He's actually due for a run. I'll say that. Can that be my rapid fire take?
Yes.
He's due for like a 2-week stretch of like, no, look, he actually does help. And then he'll blow it again.
Yeah, I'll give you my Lakers take here in 10 seconds. 1, Anthony Davis is a glass box. As much as people like to tell you he's not, he is constantly hurt. And this year's showing it, and he's only getting older. Russell Westbrook still sucks. And even if he is due for a run, he still stinks. And LeBron is leaving most likely at the end of next year. If not absolutely leaving at the end of 2024 when Bronny gets drafted, and he's probably going to go back to Cleveland. So the Lakers have next season to literally just throw every ounce and every dollar that they have, and Rob Pelinka can try to pull off the greatest offseason in free agency. And if they win the title next year, that's going to be the last one they win probably for a decade. So next year it's all or nothing for the Lakers. It's not happening this year. And once LeBron leaves, they're probably going to go back to irrelevancy.
Yep. Facts. Big facts. Because Anthony Davis ain't carrying nothing. One more quick James Harden note. Some people have been throwing out the fact that he's like an injury prone guy. I don't know if I can sign off on that. Like he really only has been hurt once, like ever in his career is last year. So maybe he's injury prone lately, but whatever. I digress. Let's move on. Rapid fire. Who is the bigger finals contender, Pat? The Bulls, the Grizzlies, or the Cavs?
The Bulls.
Okay.
The Bulls. I've loved the Bulls. I said back when on a CBS sports radio show I hosted back in December 8th, because I was literally looking the other day. I was looking for a video that I posted saying that the Bulls should not be slept on, and that if they make the Eastern Conference Finals, you heard it here first, I still think they have a shot to make the Eastern Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference playoffs, honestly, Pete, I really hope it delivers because it has the potential to be one of the best in the last since before LeBron got to Cleveland and Miami. It has that much potential where we could see Miami, we could see Philly, we could see Brooklyn, we could see Milwaukee, and we could see Chicago.
Yeah.
And
And
hell, you want to ththrow
yeah,
Cleveland in there as well? You want to throw Cleveland? I don't think ultimately Cleveland has what it takes in the best of 7.
I agree.
I'd probably have them as like the 6th best team in the East. But the way they've played, shout out to them. Shout out to their front office for getting Karras and Jared Allen and the way he's played, and Mobley, that's the rookie of the year, and Darius Garland. Boom, great team. I think Chicago's the biggest threat out of those teams because the tear they went on earlier in the year when they were healthy, and Caruso's not missing the rest of the year, Lonzo's not missing the rest of the year, so they will be back. You hope that they can get enough games under their belt by the time mid-April rolls around. But the fact that you can roll out a lineup of DeMar, Levine, Lonzo, Caruso coming off the bench, Vucevic, Ayo, that team is so goddamn dangerous.
Yeah.
They're so damn dangerous. And they've got so many different ways they can hurt you. And they've got 3 guys. Vucevic, again, he's another guy that gets slept on. Like he goes for 25 and 12 like every other game. The fact that he can hurt you down low, and he's a stretch 5, and you've got DeMar the assassin, and you got Levine that can dunk all over you, and on a night where he's shooting it well, can hit 5 threes.
He shoots it well all the time.
And they're so good defensively too. And it's a shame. It's a shame that Caruso's been hurt. And I just love the way that Chicago's come together. And I think that
cold water on you real quick. I'll go ahead, finish.
I was just saying, I think Billy Donovan's a great coach too. So I love Chicago.
Let me pour some cold water on you real quick. What would suck is if the Bulls get the 2nd seed and end up having to play the Nets in the first round. That would be rough. All year, you get the 2nd seed. You have this amazing season. You get into the first round. You see Kevin Durant. Oh, God damn. This is bullshit.
That would be brutal.
And for the Cavs too, who I almost didn't want to put in this question, but I threw them in there. There's like a little bit of a slap on the ass. They might get the Bucks in the first round. So after these fantastic seasons, you might end up with the juggernauts who we thought were going to be 1-2. For the Grizzly front, real quick, I'm going to throw them in. I'm going to say the Grizzlies have the best chance to make the finals here. And the reason is Chris Paul's injury and Draymond Green's injury. Who's better than the Memphis Grizzlies if Chris Paul and Draymond are out? I don't see a team in the West that scares me as much as Ja Morant might scare me. So I'm giving them the nod. But let's move on. Next question. NBA Rookie of the Year. First off, can you believe that Evan Mobley is minus 750 and that the next closest guy is plus 800? Do you see this race as being so wide, or do you think the Cade Cunningham, Scotty Barnes, Josh Giddey crew can make a run at Mobley's title?
I think if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was going to miss the rest of the year, you can make an argument that Giddey has a chance. I think he's fantastic, and it sucks that he's their number 2 guy behind Shai, and that if he was a starting point guard on some of the other really bad teams in the NBA, that his numbers that he'd be putting up probably would be absurd. We saw what he did again in the Garden against the Knicks. Then I bet him to get a triple-double the next game against the Spurs, and he did it again. His length, 6'8", the way that he can shoot and basically do it all, he's going to be an all-star. He's going to be an all-star very soon.
Love me some Giddey.
Yeah. So, I am surprised that Mobley's minus 750 because that's basically like runaway train front runners that he's like, they're basically saying he's already won the award, which he probably has. But I don't think it's been that much of a disparity. I made a tweet that you kind of pushed back on a couple of weeks ago when it was Cade Cunningham versus it was Detroit against Houston, and they put that as the national game on on ESPN. I was like, what the hell are we doing here? And you go, hey, Cade Cunningham, he's legit, and he is, but I just don't. The numbers don't support it. Like 15, 16, 5 and 5. That's really good numbers for an NBA rookie. But
the best numbers for a rookie.
Yeah,
counting stats.
But on a team that's so bad as Detroit is, especially since Jeremy Grant's missed a large part of this season, like I think he'd probably have to be pushing closer to like 18 points a game in order to win it. That being said, he's had a great rookie year. Scotty Barnes has been phenomenal to watch in Toronto. But yeah, I think Mobley's going to end up winning it because of the presence that he's offered down low. And even on nights where Jared Allen's not putting up big numbers, Evan Mobley's right there to pick it up.
Yeah. I think Mobley deserves the front runner here. I thought it would be a little bit tighter. I do think the other guys are really good, Barnes, I love Scotty Barnes. He's fallen off a little bit, but he's on a solid team too, right? And that might bump him a little bit. You're right. Cade, Franz Wagner, Josh Giddey, they're on the bottom of the barrel teams. On good teams, they don't get the shots that they get. And honestly, I think Barnes is the guy who's also plus 800 with Cade, who might have the best chance to catch Mobley. Because if he starts just doing 16, 8, and 8 type stuff, like really getting up his assist and playmaking, which is probably unlikely, but he has the ability. He might be able to catch it, but we shall see. All right, next question, rapid fire. Who's the best mid-tier team to watch? And I'll throw the Raptors in that conversation. So like the Raptors, the Nuggets, Timberwolves, anyone in that ilk, you can even throw the Mavericks in there who's not, top 3 seed in the conference. Maybe they're fighting for their 6th seed or they're in the play-in, whatever it may be. Is there a team that just jumps out to you that like maybe, you've been enjoying throwing some wagers on this year, or when you catch them on a national TV or a league pass game that you kind of want to keep an eye on? Is there one of those teams in the middle tier that jumps out to you?
I used up a lot of my MVP argument with Jokic on describing why he's made the Nuggets so good, but so for this one, and because they have been red hot, and yes, I've been winning a lot of wagers on them, and watching Gary Trent, go off for a large portion of that winning streak, and also FVV, my boy Freddie Van Vliet. It's got to be the Toronto Raptors. They are awesome to watch, man, and they're a team that plays really good defense. Kind of under the radar defense where they really close out a lot of shots on the perimeter. Siakam's been an absolute animal down low. Like he's starting to put up like triple double numbers. I remember the one game against Charlotte where he had 24, 11, and 8. And then you've got guys that can just explode off the floor, like Scotty Barnes, like OG Anunoby. They've been really, really fun to watch, and they've gotten lost in the shuffle of the Eastern Conference. They're 32-25. And they had some injuries, and they had a really big bout with COVID that they dealt with early on in the season. Where at one point they were under 500, just as early as the last month. They were 22-22. Since then, they've gone 10-3 going into the break. So I hope they don't cool off. I hope they continue to stay hot, because then that makes the Eastern Conference playoff discussion even that much more serious and that much more fun and that much more crowded. And I think that's a really good team. So I think they've been really fun to watch.
They're hard to play, and they play like 8 guys. They're like kind of low-key Tibbs, Jace. Like they're playing 8 guys like so many minutes. But Pascal's been awesome. He's kind of resurging back to the form we thought he'd take. His last 10, he's averaging 25, 9.5, and 5. Killer numbers. He's 21, 9, and 5 on the season. Up in that to 25 with keeping those same assist numbers is really, really special. Good for him. I'm going to go with the Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is so much freaking fun to watch. And I'll tell you, the low-key guys who are fun to watch on the Timberwolves, Jaden McDaniels and Jared Vanderbilt. Those guys fly around the court. Like, it's insane. They're jumping in for rebounds and putbacks. They're blocking shots. They're playing insane defense. They're super fun. And then you got to give it to Cat. I've always loved watching Cat play offense. Didn't always love watching Cat teams lose games. But now that this team is kind of getting put together and Ant Edwards is maybe the energetic leader of the team, you got to check out a T. If you guys have not watched a T-Wolves game this year, I'm telling you, tune in, watch Anthony Edwards just drive through everybody and dunk on their foreheads, and then also hit a nice 3 while Cat becomes the most efficient big man shooter like ever. Like, it's insane. I really love watching Timberwolves. They might make the playoffs, which I'd be really happy for them if they do.
And I know he's still very inconsistent. He's gotten like much better, but he's still very inconsistent. But D'Angelo's been very good.
From the Nets, man. Prime D'Angelo Russell era was when I was heavily working at the Fan, working Nets games. That boy was fun, and he's starting to get back there. When you see him make one of the passes, that's the thing for D'Angelo Russell for me. When he was coming in the draft, you saw these slick bounce passes from the lefty at Ohio State. Like, man, this guy's kind of like 6'5". He's got a nice frame. He sees the floor. This is great. And then he became so shot happy. He fell in love with scoring, and he just lost some juice there. When you see him make the nice passes and play defense, oh, it's so easy to root for him again.
And there's times where it's still a learning curve where he's 26, so he's not that young. He's not a rookie obviously anymore, and you think he grew out of that rookie mentality, but he still does get shot happy, and that's where the inconsistency comes in. Where one night he'll put up 29, he'll shoot 6 of 13 from deep, and then the next game he'll put up 8 points, which he's put up single-digit scoring efforts in like 3 out of their last 10 games. So like it happens pretty often. And there's like just the last game going into the All-Star break, he went 2 of 11 from the field against Toronto, and it's like, dude, stop fucking shooting. Just stop shooting for the night, please.
D'Angelo Russell Westbrook.
But yeah, I mean, they're an exciting team, man. There's so much talent. It's just so fun when like this is the closest I've ever followed the NBA, where I'm following the slate every single night. Looking for same game parlays, watching games. You've been so gracious enough to hand over your league pass, which I've yet to fully utilize.
Shh. No, actually, no. We're allowed 2 people at once. Never mind. We're good. I pay for the extra account. Let's go, baby. Watch that all day.
Yes, sir. But now that we get 2 a week on TNTs, we get the ESPN Wednesdays and Fridays. We're gonna get the Sunday afternoon games now. Oh, I can't wait.
I'm pumped. I'm so pumped. All right, 2 more. 2 more. Is Zion done playing for the New Orleans Pelicans? Has he played his last game for the New Orleans Pelicans?
I'd say yes. The only thing that makes me think no is because if he wants to get traded, and that's probably the likely outcome, right? I don't think he's going to walk into free agency. If he wants to get traded, he has to showcase to a team, hey, I still have it. I'm still the number 1 pick. I still can explode off the floor, and I'm not 350 pounds and fat now, which he is. So he's going to have to get his ass into shape, and I don't think a team's going to just take a chance on him willy-nilly with all the injury problems he's having with this foot now over the last 12 months. And, who do you want to believe? Do you want to believe the team and saying that, oh, he really is hurt? Do you want to believe Zion? Do you think he's just faking it and it's not faking it, but do you think it's bullshit and that he could probably come back to practice and probably could have been starting to play? So I don't think a team's just going to take a shot in the dark on him. So I think we probably will see him playing in a Pelicans uniform again, but it won't be meaningful, and it's not going to be for the future. I think his days are very, very numbered in New Orleans.
Should have just texted CJ McCollum, man. Sheesh. Like CJ's a good guy. He's the head of the NBA Players Association. Just text my boy. Like, come on. Like, that was JJ Redick, bro. I love that JJ Redick did that because there's a lot of players in the league who get away with a lot of stuff. This is a guy who we all love who hasn't earned much in this league yet, right? He
hasn't earned shit.
He's had 1 good year under his belt. He was relatively healthy last year, and he was freaking awesome. Guess what? Text CJ McCollum, bro. It ain't like you traded for freaking Aaron Holiday and you didn't text him. It's CJ McCollum. Everybody loves him. He's the freaking head of the Players Association. Be like, yo, what up? Can't wait to see you if I ever come back. That's it. Done. Anyways, let's move on. Final question, Pat, college basketball guy over there. Who is the number 1 pick in your eyes? Is it Jabari Smith out of Auburn, Chet Holmgren out of Gonzaga, or Paolo Banchero from Duke? All 3 versatile, bigger players, one bigger than the next, really. It's a tough race right now. Maybe one guy leading the way. Who do you think is the number 1 pick in the NBA draft this year, Pat?
I think it's Paolo. I think it's been Paolo since before he got to Duke. Watching his highlights in high school, watching Duke very closely in November and December, seeing how he can carry them on a nightly basis now. Look, Jabari Smith has been fantastic, and who the hell saw Auburn being a number 1 team? I don't think they're number 1 anymore when they lost last week, but sorry, I had a cough. But I think it's still just in terms of being ready for the NBA. Paolo Banchero was ready for the NBA. He could have, if you still could have went high school to the NBA, he would have, and he probably would have been the number 1 overall pick. 6'10", 250 pounds, 17-8. With the ability, he shows some flashes at times of being able to be a really good passer and distributor. There's times where he'll force it and turn it over. I mean, he's young, so I'm not surprised. But he's only averaging 4 turnovers for the year? Not even, sorry, 2.5 turnovers. So it's not that bad. But the decision making with him still can improve a lot. And the 3-point shooting, I don't know how much of a dangerous 3-point shooter he's ever going to be. He's only shooting 30% from deep. But the fact that he can take over a game, get to the bucket at will, he's got the unreal athleticism. Like we said, he's 6'10". He's probably going to play a 3 or a 4. And the fact that you can slot him into almost any NBA team and he can play meaningful minutes next year, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, far and away.
Yeah, and all 3 of these guys, man, all Like Jabari and Paolo are both 6'10". Chet's 7 foot. Like all three of these guys are huge. They're all game changers. Chet, I think there'll be some nerves just based off body type. Where we've seen these tall guys who are like a little bit too athletic for their bodies, like just get hurt, right? Porzingis comes to mind, obviously. Not that Porzingis was Chet Holmgren, right? But close, pretty damn close. Chet maybe a little more smooth, but I think some people will be nervous from him, even though he's really, really good and he can do a lot. He might be the best passer at all three of them, which is
He is.
enticing to see for a guy who can kind of run it from the top and you can't sag off because he'll knock down. So I think there's a chance Chet sneaks up, but I wouldn't bet on it. So I think the frame is just going to scare people. I think Jabari Smith's going to be the number 1 pick, though. I think the shooting consistency is going to just awe so many franchises. And when he starts going to like the 3 workouts that he has to go to because he's the number 1 pick, probably, they're going to be like, what? This guy is a human? Like, what is going on here? He's yoked. He is tall. He has a straight shot jumper that doesn't miss, seemingly. Like, I think he's going to wow people in workouts, and I think he'll be the number 1 pick, but it's going to be damn close. Exciting class. Exciting class. Maybe the Knicks will lose enough games to get one of those top 3 picks back. Maybe.
No, don't bank on it. Don't bank on it. I told you the Knicks are stuck in the middle, the mediocre middle. But yeah, no, I mean, because Chet really can handle, especially for somebody that's 7 foot and looks lanky as hell. Like, obviously, you could tell he was a guard at one point, and then all of a sudden, boom, he grew like a foot in like the span of a year and a half. So he's got really good handles, and he might be the best outside shooter out of all of them.
Yeah.
And his numbers are absurd. Like, obviously, when he's underneath the bucket, nobody in the West Coast Conference is covering him. He's shooting 62% from the field, but he's hitting 45% of his threes. Like, he can shoot. But I think just in terms of, he needs to put on weight because he's too lanky. But once, like, I think in 3 years, he might have the highest ceiling, Chet Holmgren. Once he fills out and he turns into, maybe puts on another inch and he's 7'1", 240, he's going to be an absolute force, an absolute animal. But I think the most ready for NBA right now is Paolo. And
they all shoot 75% or above from free throw, which means their shooting should translate to the NBA. That's one of the big indicators. It's kind of, Chet Holmgren's kind of like what people wanted Boyle to be, like this super lanky big guy who's like taking transition threes and whopping them. Like, that's kind of who he actually is.
Yeah.
And also protecting the rim because he's mad tall. That's good stuff. Pat, this was fun, man. This is so fun. NBA talk. I texted you today. Any chance you want to get off some NBA takes? And you said, yes, I would like to get off some NBA takes. And here we are. We got off a bunch of them. Did we leave anything out that maybe you even wanted to bring up? We can save it for next time. But any other storylines, any other teams, any other things NBA related that are tickling your fancy at the moment?
No, I think we ran through most of it, man.
Boom. How you feeling about the old MLB?
That didn't get me started. Fucking joke.
All right, good. I'm not going to get you started. We don't have 10 more minutes to go.
I'm gonna have to talk about it for probably an hour tomorrow because you know that the elder community of the fan is going to be dying. They're going to be dying to talk baseball, even though it's been an absolute shit show. They're going to be dying to talk it. So I'm definitely going to have to delve into it at some point in my show tomorrow.
I can already hear you talking to a caller like, no, I don't want to hear it until there's any sort of progress. I don't want to hear anything about baseball and what they could have done and billionaires versus millionaires. No, none of it matters. I'm hearing it already.
The fact that it's basically just come down to like luxury tax threshold and the CBT and like just basically the fact that these, the players want to get paid more money and the owners aren't paying them. It's just, that's what it's come down to, right? Like, take all the bullshit numbers and stats and acronyms out of it. The players want more money. The owners don't want to give them more money. Figure it the fuck out. And I side with the players, and I feel like I'm most likely going to side with the players. Maybe that's because we're younger. Whereas you have the older crew, these guys are making millions of dollars, but then you realize like the owners are making billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And we can go off on.
The only thing I'll say, because I had my own father said to me the other day about, it's just billionaires fighting millionaires. Like, if they go through a lockout here again, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to come back from this one. I'm like, but the only thing I'll say to push back on that is, and he'll come back. Don't get it twisted. He'll be watching the Mets. The only thing I'd push back on is, in this case, they're kind of fighting for the little guy a little bit too, the millionaires, right? Like, the players want their big purses, of course, but they're also kind of fighting for getting to free agency at a more reasonable rate. They're fighting for minor leaguers, like in some cases here. So it's not just they're not just fighting for the person who's going to make $200 million contract. They're fighting for all of the people who might make $1 million contract and like their career could be over in 4 years. Like, so it's a little bit deeper, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. We gotta say goodbye now. That's it. Any last words? Non-related. Fan tomorrow night, Thursday night into Friday morning. Pat Boyle 44 on the Instagrams and Twitters. Any other plugs? Any other last words?
I'll have a fan show the week after as well. It'll be Wednesday going into Thursday. So that would be the morning of March 3rd.
Beautiful.
So you've got Friday, February 25th, 12 to 5. Thursday, March 3rd, 12 to 5. And hopefully we'll do another pod early next week where I can replug that as well.
Chef's kiss. Pat Boyle, as always, thank you so much. Can't wait to do it again. Can't wait for NBA to be back Thursday night. This is Subway Sports Talk. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and now on YouTube. Other than that, I got nothing to say. Cheers.